Bezrat Hashem, this class should be a Lilui Nishmat for Yehuda, Aryeh, Raphael, Ben, what is it? Yita. I hope I said it right. Hashem knows what I mean. Should be a really, really, really big aliyah of the neshama for him. His family should have nechama, should have comfort, and all the other people that are struggling so much right now with the COVID, and obviously not just the disease itself, but all of the outpouring that's come from it, whether it's financial or whether it's being stuck at home, not being able to go out. This is a hard time for everybody. And the one thing that we should all keep in mind, and Rav Natan used to speak about this a lot, how Rabbi Nachman used to bring a lesson that it says about Avram Avinu, that Hashem promised him that he would have Geula, right? That there would be redemption for his children. And at the same time that he promised him that there would be redemption for his children, what was Avram doing? He was walking up mountain to sacrifice the son that he was praying for his whole entire life. And this is a very powerful story and something to think about. And, we don't really put the two together so much. And that is how, on the one hand, Hashem could tell us redemption is so close. And on the other hand, we're suffering so much and we're struggling so much. And so to speak, we're sacrificing our own son, meaning that level of Mesirat Nefesh, that level of struggle and difficulty and challenge. And Rav Natan brings, and he used to say this over to his students and to his son often. He used to quote this in the letters to his children and his students, that Abraham, it said that he saw from afar. What do you see from afar? The Har Bayit. But he explains that what's the deeper understanding here? Meaning that even while he was going through his personal trial at the time, which is obviously the most difficult of his life, and his whole life was trials and tribulations, to the extent that the Or Chaim says something unbelievable. What was the schut of Avram Avinu? Obviously many, many times we speak about the fact that he was the one who discovered Hashem. He was the one who, let's say, he didn't have someone to learn from. He found it himself, X, Y, and Z. So all of those things are true. And obviously he's the first Jew. So this is embedded in every single one of us. And obviously the Balei Tshuva relate to Avram Avinu the most, in the sense that we have, so to speak, reincarnated that whole experience. But the Or Chaim says that the reason why he was so beloved by Hashem, and the reason why he literally calls him in the Tanakh, my beloved, meaning I love him almost more than any of my other children. Even Yaakov, who I chose, he's called the chosen one of Hashem, but not the beloved one of Hashem. Why is it Abraham? So he said, because Abraham, the Or Chaim said, he didn't see any kindness from Hashem his whole life. And he didn't stop running after him. That he didn't see any revelation at all of his good. And in fact, his life kept getting harder and harder and harder. And it didn't stop him from his search and his yearning for Hashem. That Avram said he loved him no matter what, despite the fact that there was no reciprocation and that his life was getting more and more challenging. The Or Chaim said he didn't see any kindness from him. It was unbelievable. It's very powerful. And it said about Abraham, but he saw from afar. Meaning what? That he always had Geula in his mind. That this was what allowed him to get through all the challenges in his life, was that he kept his mind on what was afar, kind of like we learn in Bitul. That if you keep your mind on Echad, you keep your mind on Olam Haba, you keep your mind on Geula, which we know must happen. That even when you're going through the difficulties, but keep your eyes on what's afar as well, and make sure it's near to you. And this is gives everybody the courage and the strength to move through. And obviously, in B'schut of Avraham Avinu, we will have Geula at the end. Mm-hmm. So this is something to keep in mind for everybody. And Bezrat Hashem, tonight we should be connected, attached, have tremendous hikashrut to all the true tzaddikim who are alive today, to all the true tzaddikim who are buried in the earth, and to the tzaddik Yesod Olam, to the Nachal Naveh Makor Chochma, Rabbi Nachman ben Fegazal, the light of ancient days, the one who said about himself that I am the river from Gan Eden, and I clean from all stains. And even though it sounds very, very big to say such a thing, the truth is he does. And when you realize that everything that he says happens and is true, it becomes even more unbelievable, the statements that he did say. Bezrat Hashem, we should all hear exactly what we need to hear to get close to Hashem right now. So we said like this, secular wisdom. I don't know how much you guys can hear this again for me. Secular wisdom. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Just growing up, I was mamish the biggest proponent of secular wisdom, that I was going to everybody, unfortunately, and I'm still doing tshuva for this every day, that trying to get people on atheism, trying to get people on evolutionary theory. It's unbelievable. Like, Hashem really, he puts people on an interesting path in their lives. You know, you never know where your life is going to turn and what's going to change. But we see here that really the inability to get your prayers answered, and specifically the inability to feel that intense closeness, connection, genuinity when you speak, doesn't come from, let's say, your inability to have attention span. It doesn't come from the fact that you're used to, let's say, using technology, or you're used to doing things very quick, and now I have to sit down and talk to Hashem. It actually comes from a very deep spiritual thing, and that is that there's a clog, there is a obstruction, there is a barrier, which is caused by the secular wisdom which you are engaged in looking at, learning, investing in, exposing yourself to. And every piece of it is, so to speak, creating a bigger barrier around the heart and the mind, to the extent that when you scream to Hashem, when you pray to Hashem, you don't break the barrier of the mind, then it doesn't create the thunder which strikes the heart. And he says that this is the real reason that people are not happy. Okay? And we said that the Zohar says something unbelievable. Pesach is, we said Pesach, the mouth that speaks. That's Geula, that's redemption. And we know that there's Bi'or Chametz before that, B'dikar Chametz. You have to search for Chametz and you have to burn it. And the Zohar says that the only difference between Chametz and Matzah is the chet that's broken. Meaning when the chet is broken, that line and the chick in the line and the chet is broken, then you have a hey. You flip the letters around, chametz is matzah. It's only that little chick. Okay? So what is that corresponding to? So the chet is always corresponding to wisdom. Like we learned in the first Torah of the Likutei Moharan, that the chet is corresponding to chokhmah. However, that's from the side of kedusha. However, we know that everything always has the opposite. So what's the chokhmah of the other side? The sitra achra, secular wisdom, and we need to break that. And when you break that, literally it becomes a hay. We know that the hay is always reflective of the Shekhinah. In Kabbalah and Chassidut, they always speak about the letter hay as reflective of the Shekhinah. This is the reason why Avram, after he passed his test, he became Avraham. Why Sarai became Sarah. Because they had, from that point on, the Shekhinah resting on them the rest of their life. So the letter Hey is always corresponding to the Shekhinah. Mm-hmm. That's the reason also why in Hashem's name, you have Yud K, Vav K. In Kabbalah, they explain that the upper Hey is referring to the upper Shekhinah. The first Hey is referring to the upper Shekhinah. And the lower Hey is referring to the lower Shekhinah. And we actually, in our generation, we need to have a revelation of the final level, which is the lower level of the Shekhinah, which is corresponding to Malchut, which is the reason why Rabbi Nachman says that the entire Galut is caused by a deficit in Emunah, because Emunah is that final letter Hey, meaning when a person has complete Emunah, that's the Shekhinah. Okay?
Where's the ham? So in Pesach was there, you said?
No, the Pesach is matzah and chametz. Oh. So what we can't eat chametz on Pesach. We can only eat matzah. So the Zohar says, what's the difference between chametz and matzah? If you flip the letters around, it's the same exact word. It's just that the chet has a little bit more of a line than the excess. Very good. And what's the excess? It's the reed. We said that it's the concept of a reed, that when you learn secular wisdom, it's like when you plunge a reed into a sea, and then not only can you not get it out because it's stuck there, it almost reminds you of like those old comic books or whatever, the thing is stuck in the ground, nobody can get it out. But then on top of that, something grows from there, which is also negative, which brings you to Taiva. That is Edom. Rome is built from that place. Meaning you first stuck Greek wisdom, which we know came before Rome, right? Secular wisdom. And then as a result of that, Rome was built there, meaning all of the obsession with sexuality, with wasting seed, with connecting to all of our physical taivas in excess. So all of these things, okay? So now, if somebody can give me a siddur, I want to show you something. I had Hashem placed a tremendous chiddush in my mind as I was wrapping tefillin. We know that the Shulchan Aruch says that for anybody who's a Yirat Shamayim, he's going to wear a Beinu Tam in addition to his Rashi tefillin. And we know that Rabbi Nachman was makpid that you wear regardless, not only if you have Yirat Shamayim. And the reason is because the Baal Shem Tov stressed that for the Geula to take place, because it was getting darker in the world, meaning we were falling asleep more, we were becoming less conscious, we would need a bigger light. We would need a bigger revelation of Da'at, not a lesser one, right? Like Rabbi Nachman says, when a person is not connected to Hashem, to the degree in which he's far, he needs a greater rabbi. He needs more Da'at to bring him back in. So we know that according to Kabbalah, and the Ben Ish Chai speaks about it, that Rashi corresponds to the sphere of Bina, and that Rabbeinu Tam corresponds to the sphere of Chokhmah, which is a higher revelation of Das, of God consciousness, okay? So as I was putting on Rabbeinu Tam, I started to say the first passages of the Shema, not the ones that are part of the actual Shema, the mitzvah, but the first two, Kaddish, that you say in the morning when you first put them on. And I saw something, and I don't know, it never struck me before, but when I saw it this time, it struck me big time because the lesson that we did. And I want to show it to you guys because I think you'll appreciate it. So it says in Kaddish, V'yadaber Hashem el Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe to say, sanctify me the Bechor, right? And then it goes on to say over here, Shivaim Yamim Tochal Matzot. For 7 days you need to eat matzot, which we know means Emunah, Da'at, God consciousness. Uvayom Hashvi Chag LaHashem. On the 7th day, you're going to party like crazy. V'lo yira'eh lecha chametz. And you're not supposed to see any chametz. Should say you should eat it, no? You shouldn't see any chametz. You shouldn't see any chametz. V'lo yira'eh lecha se'ur. Or in any sa'ur, which is leavening, meaning you shouldn't see anything of the sort, nothing like this. Bechol gevulecha, in all of your boundaries, in all of your borders. Now listen to this. V'higata levincha bayom ahu lemor. And when your son is going to say to you, Bavur zeh asa Hashem, li b'tzati Mitzrayim. For this reason, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Okay? Now, the way that we usually read that is that for the sake of saying the Haggadah, meaning for the sake of telling your child, that's why we were taken out. That's how the rabbis learn it. But if you look about what we learned, so you see that you could read it, that for this sake you were taken out of Mitzrayim from the pasuk before that, which is that you don't see any chametz or se'or in your boundaries at all. For this sake, you were taken out of Mitzrayim. Understand? And this fits in very, very well with what we learned. You didn't chop it. Okay. The simple understanding of this pasuk is like this. For what sake did we leave Mitzrayim? Did Hashem take us out? So that we could tell our children about it. That's the main mitzvah of Pesach, and we know Pesach is reflective of Geula. Okay. However, if you look at the pasuk before that, it says, what leads up to you telling your son? What leads up to you telling your child and fulfilling this mitzvah? That is that you're not seeing any chametz anywhere. Not in your boundaries, no nothing. Nothing of the sorts, nothing like it. And then it seemingly goes on to a separate point. And for this sake, meaning for the Haggadah, I put you through Mitzrayim and I took you out. However, you could just read it literally. For what sake did I take you out of Mitzrayim? For the pasuk before, that you didn't see any chametz. Look it over after. I can see it hasn't clicked yet, but that's okay. Thank God. Okay, good. It was much more exciting in my head. I remember when I got it in the morning, I was very excited. Couldn't wait to tell you guys. You guys are all looking very, very... You guys probably figured this out as you read your Mem Loez for breakfast when you were 5 years old, but I just figured it out now. Thank God. Okay, so now it says like this. V'ikor lishmor mocho shelo yachmitz. You must safeguard yourself to make sure that your mind is free from chametz. That's what David HaMelech says, rebuke chayat, the beast of the field. And we said that is that you need to break the chet and make it matzah. Okay, good. Now he says like this. V'zeh perus. This is the explanation of the pasuk. Ozen shoma'a tochachat chayim bekerev chamim talin. He who hears the reproof, the rebuke of life, he lodges among those who are wise. This word lodges, lashon taluna umariva. It is the concept of a complaint or a conflict. So now listen to what he says. When you see tzaddikim who are in conflict, who are fighting, you should know. Hashem only created this situation and this circumstance so that you should be able to, in the most honorable, most dignifiable, least embarrassing way, hear the rebuke that you need to hear from their conversation. Meaning that when you walk inside a room and you see big tzaddikim and they seem to be arguing or fighting, maybe you saw a video even, or you heard some type of news around the block going on. What's the whole reason you heard it? So Rabbi Nachman says it was actually tohacha for you. Al pagamta betipe mochacha. That's coming from the blemish of the drops of your mind. Meaning that because you're watching and listening to secular wisdom, you now heard conflict between tzaddikim. Yes. But that's only between real tzaddikim. This isn't just between the Stam brothers on the block. They're always doing this and it doesn't mean anything. But if you hear about real tzaddikim and they're in conflict, you're hearing it because you have soured your mind with secular wisdom. Okay? And this is what the pasuk says, Kol ba'eh lo yeshuvun. None that go to her return. V'lo yasigu archot chayim. Nor do they regain the paths of lives. Like we said before, that Rabbi Nachman says, is there a intellectual analogy to a prostitute? Is there anything in the intellect that we could compare to a female prostitute for a man? There is. It's called secular wisdom. The same level of appeal, the same enticement, the same curves, the same everything. Secular wisdom.
That's why now let's look at it.
No, so that's not the only reason why you're not to look at it, but it's part of it. So to speak like this, there is shmira to the Brit. We know we have spoken about this many times, that the Brit is much more complex, nuanced than you could possibly imagine. And therefore, when we're talking about the master of the Brit, we're not just talking about someone who has stopped himself from wasting physical seed. He stopped wasting all seed. This seed, this seed, this seed, this seed, this seed, this seed. Meaning that when a person looks at secular wisdom, he has wasted the seed of his mind because he could have been using that time. Wasting the potential. But what is the whole concept of seed? The seed turns into fruit. Mm-hmm. So when you think about something, every time that you think about something, even the Tanya speaks about it. You don't just think about things, even though we do it all the time. He said what you're doing is you're uniting, you're creating a yichud between your mind and the thing that you're thinking about. You're making love to that thing. Kiviyachol. Right? And if you think about it, what do you mean no? How's it possible? Why? Just because you have fur in the back of your head doesn't mean you have status in this place over here. What do you want to say?
How does that make sense?
Think about it. It's very deep.
I
No, you haven't. It's been 1 second. You couldn't have thought about that much. Listen.
How are you making love to something if you're looking at something?
What's the whole concept?
Looking at the wall.
What? Yeah, let the wall go for a little bit. Nobody needs to see that. Listen, you have, when you're thinking about anything, what are you doing with that? You're contemplating it. It's taking up a space in your mind. Your energy is being input into that thing in your mind. You're attaching yourself to it. Where do we see this so clear that this is mamish pashat pashat in the Torah? Because the first concept of union in the Torah is called knowing.
But who does that in 2020?
Take it easy, relax. We're all doing it. That's the whole point. Anytime that we think about anything, we're having union with it. Exactly. That Adam knew Chava. What does it mean he knew her? It means that he was physically intimate with her. However, we know that according to the very, very big Mekubalim, you can't even understand the whole story of Adam and Chava because it was before the physical world and all of the structures and boundaries came into existence. So who was this physical person named Adam who extended from one end of the world to the other? And Chava as well. What were they? Consciousness. They were two types of thoughts, and they were thinking about each other.
So is this the concept of secular and Torah isn't connected?
So no, Chava is not secular.
They're not actually secular?
The tree is is secular.
So then what's Chava?
So the Chava in this case is the lower wisdom, meaning Amunah. Adam is the higher wisdom that's called Chokhmah. Meaning Chokhmah and Amunah were uniting. They were thinking about each other because they were just consciousness and they were linking up. And that's what gave birth. Okay? When you think about something, what happens when you think about something? It gives birth to something.
You make it reality.
You make it a reality, or even if you don't, you do. Because you can't do something that doesn't give birth to fruit. Everything that a person does, especially a Jewish person, you have so much spiritual koach, every Jew, you have no idea. Everything that you say has a very deep effect. Everything that you think has a very deep effect. Everything you see, everything that you hear. The whole world was literally created so you can rectify it through all the different means that you have at your disposal. Partners with him, very good. And thought is the highest function. So when you think about something, what are you doing? It's a very deep thing. You're uniting with that thing.
There was no food anyways. They were combining together.
There is fruit. There is fruit, but this is
the fruit of the mind coming together. Isn't that?
But again, we know that all the different opinions of the fruit are corresponding to the different 7 lower sfirot. All the different opinions, meaning these are the different fruit of that type of connection.
Physical and spiritual.
Whatever. The main thing that we're supposed to be getting out of this whole thing is that there's a concept of union in thought. That if I think about something, I'm uniting with that thing. And then you have feelings that come from that. Let's say, for instance, I'm thinking about the fact that I'm struggling in my life. What's going to be the emotion that comes from that? Sadness. Why should sadness come from a thought? What does a thought have to do with a feeling? This is a very deep thing. Okay, whatever it is. But you have some type of...
There is something that manifests.
Manifest. And what's manifest? Why is there something manifesting from your thoughts? Because you're giving birth to your emotions through your thoughts. Your thoughts are literally giving birth to your emotions. This is something that Hasidus was onto before CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is now 200 years later, that thoughts give birth to your feelings, give birth to your actions, because a very deep spiritual thing. Your thought literally gives birth. That's the reason why Rabbi Nachman says that when you get Eitzah, when you get advice, you need to make sure it's coming from a good place. Why? Because that advice is entering into your mind, it's having union with you. And it's going to give birth to something. So you got to make sure that Eitzah is, Chalav Yisrael, high degree kashrut. So now it says like this: why do you hear reproof? Why do you hear rebuke? The rebuke is actually a tikkun for the bagam of the mind. Sha'al zenemar, like we just said. And this is a prostitute from which you don't come back from. This is the reason why when Jews, even more so, connect to secular wisdom, they have an even more intense attachment, because their level and ability to have union with something is more than anyone in the world. The ability to know is the highest with the Jewish people, meaning the ability to unite. This is why Jews are drawn to everything that's not related to Torah when they're not related to Torah. Meaning you never see Jewish people that when they don't learn Torah, they're just parv. They're gonna go make a storm somewhere. whether it's in Hollywood, or whether it's in science, or whether it's in math, because the whole entire concept of the Jewish people is we came here to create unity, unity within yourself, unity within the Jewish people, unity within the world, all through consciousness, all through knowing. Right, we all came from Hashem's machshava. Very good. We all came from Hashem's thought. So therefore, when we know things, it has an even deeper impact on us. Okay, that knowing is just looking at it.
We came from Hashem's thoughts.
We came from Hashem's thought.
That's why when we're happy, Hashem likes when we're happy because that's basically His thoughts correlating to us as well.
It's not that He likes it.
He is that. That is His happiness. His happiness is manifesting inside of you. Okay. Shata davuk desitra demota, that you have become attached, Mike. You become attached to the side of death. Bechinat Yerad Gavriel. This is the concept of Gavriel, that he is the malach who deals with gevurot. He deals with severities. He deals with judgments. And what is he doing? He's bringing down a staff and placing it into the ocean. The ocean represents the mind. The staff is the reed. The reed is the secular wisdom. Places it into the ocean.
It's like skin. Literally, that whole concept is placed it on us.
Right.
Like the reed would be our Yisrael. You have to cut it.
Oh, very good, very good. Very good. That secular wisdom is to the mind what the foreskin is to the bread. Beautiful. Exactly. Exactly. Hainu chokhmot chitzoniot neotzim bayam chokhmatcha. Know also that a reed has been plunged, extrinsic wisdom has been plunged into your sea of wisdom. Because for sure, if you did not have a pagam of the mind that came from secular wisdom, you would not hear conflict from real tzaddikim. You would never hear it. It's impossible. That all of the conflict is only for your sake. That you should return from death to life. That you should return from chametz and that you should experience matzah. From the letter chet to the letter hey. V'tashuv miyira'ah. That you should return from fallen fears. Fears about finances, fears about my spouse and I, fears about my family, fears about the economy, fears about all of these different things. In the language of Kabbalah, they're all called fallen fears. They only come about when there's a blemish of the mind that came through secular wisdom. And now if you get rebuke, that actually is Hashem's kindness because it's teshuvah, meaning it's fixing it for you. The mikoma pagum, that from the voice that's blemished, mechochma paguma liyira tova. That you return from this lower level fear, from this voice which is blemished, from blemished wisdom to complete chokhmah. And now when you have real chokhmah and it's not blemished, now when you pray to Hashem, those prayers are all going to strike your mind. Your mind is all going to create moach, mochin, God consciousness, which is the key, which is going to drop down and shake out all of the shtus out of the heart. And that's what's going to allow you to be besimcha. By the way, you should know, I don't know if you ever realize, who are the people who are rebuked the most? Okay.
The ones who are the most quiet in life.
No. Who are the
most sinners?
Who are the ones who are constantly being rebuked? All the time that someone's criticizing them. This one's saying this one's saying.
What's that inside of him?
Children?
No. I'm saying what type of person?
A negative person.
A person that he himself is arrogant. Ego. That's it. It's very. I'm telling you right now, the amount of rebuke that I used to get was insane. From
other people?
From whatever, from everything. Huh? And especially when you try and grow, you get it even more. But then something happens that if you don't give up, you will realize that the whole entire time you actually were still, even though you thought you were humble, you still had a very high degree of arrogance. Moshe got rebuked for other reasons.
Mm.
Moshe got rebuked for other reasons.
Is Paro talking to Moshe as a view from Hashem? Because he advocated for the Jews and nothing was on.
Right. There is a concept of a person that he reaches a certain level, that he becomes, let's call the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, and he is the one who bears the majority of the burdens for the Jewish people.
So they have nothing to do with him and his own accord.
Not for Moshe, but for the majority of all of us, the Stam brothers. So it's for our benefit. This is what it is. Okay? So now he says like this. Uchshetishmor et mochacha, but when you guard your mind bechina chametz, from the concept of chametz, shelo yeh hatum, and there's no blockage now, there's no clogging. Azai yifga kolcha megugaltecha, then will strike your voice to your mind. Vitaved ra'am, and you will create thunder. Vit pashet, and that thunder will extend and it will shoot out. Akmimiut shebelibcha, and it will strike out and remove all of the crookedness that's in your heart. Va'az, and only then, tizke simcha, will you merit to be happy in your life.
What part of the body is the heart located?
The heart is located over here, but in the language of Kabbalah, the heart is corresponding to Bina.
Yeah. So physically it's already on the left side.
It's the left side. Oh, very good. Beautiful. Yes, physically, it's on the left side. Okay? Now, we know that in Kabbalah, it's explained that at the level of Chokhmah, it's pure godliness. It's only good. We know that where does the source of judgments in the world come from? They come from Hashem's heart, so to speak, which is called Bina. They're not manifest there, meaning there is no bad in Bina. It's only good. But the potential for it is created in Bina. And then eventually it devolves, comes down into this physical world, and depending on our actions, it becomes actual manifest judgments. Now, so too, a Jewish heart, when it's not blemished by secular wisdom, is like Bina, and it's happy. It's besimcha. However, when not, then we have gevurot, we have judgments. It descends from Bina to Gevura, and you have that, okay? But the natural state of a Jewish heart is to be tremendously, tremendously happy.
Hashem's Shefa and Yisrael is Parnasa.
That's one extension of his Shefa.
So there's no Parnasa that goes throughout the world.
It could be that there's a blockage of Shefa in the world. It could also be that this is the tikkun for the Taivat Mammon, that we know that the Jewish people, this was the whole reason they had the golden calf. So there's always reasons for whatever Hashem is doing. You should know. Always reasons. We don't know what they are, but this is the whole concept of bitul, that I am taking my own thoughts, what makes sense to me. I'm closing my eyes and I'm saying, Hashem, I'm looking towards the fact that whatever is going on right now is only for the sake of bringing me to that ultimate state of unity in all of us, oneness and goodness. And even though I don't understand how you get from here to there, I know it's getting there. And that's what I'm going to focus on. This is the entire inyan of Simcha, to be able to do this. That if you only focus on what's going on around you, there is no way you're going to be happy. Because this world right now is fragmented. It's broken. It is disconnected because of Tuma. Because we know that the whole concept of spiritual Tuma is it manifests itself through disconnectedness, through disconnection, through lack of shalom. And he says like this, then you will merit to Simcha. Like the pasuk says, "Uyishrei leiv simcha." To the one who has a straight heart, he's going to have simcha. And this is the explanation of the pasuk. Encha beseter ha'am, evchancha al mei meriva sela. I tested you at the waters of Meriva, conflict, sela. Mei meriva, the waters of conflict. Ze bechinat matzah. This is the concept of matzah, because we said matzah is the concept of conflict. Bechinat mochin, which is the
Matzah is a concept of conflict?
yes, because we said matzah.
Oh, it's like a sweet rebuke to us.
Yes, it's like the sweet rebuke.
That's interesting.
Yes, Bechina mochin. Ayedeh ze nazir amim. And through this thunder is generated.
Because it's a very humbling thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you're humble, that's like you do.
That's right. That's right. And Rabbi Nachman says that there's two ways that you can find humility if you're genuinely looking to be close to Hashem.
Inspirational.
Hot dogs or burgers? No, I'm just kidding. You can either get it through you're asking Hashem, can I get closer to you? And then you're going to get it over the head from everybody around you. Or you can mamish have Dveikut with the Tzaddik. That if you have Ikash with the Tzaddik, meaning that even though I don't want to learn Gemara at night, I do it anyway because my rabbi told me to. That even though I don't want to learn Shulchan Aruch every day, I do it anyway because my rabbi told me to. If I have real Dveikut with my Tzaddik, meaning that I humble myself, that I don't want to, and I do this anyway, then you don't get it elsewhere. Yes. God. When he was younger, he had a tutor. And he outgrew him. And Rabbi Nachman was an avid reader. He never stopped reading. He learned the entire Torah, not just the Chumash, meaning all of Talmud Bavli, all of Talmud Yerushalmi, all of the Mishnayot, all of the Midrashim, all of the Zohar, all of the Kitvi Ari, every year, again and again and again, in the Shulchan Aruch. So obviously I'm very limited in how much I can learn in terms of my capabilities and also my language skills and whatever, but do you know what it is to do that?
That's a lot.
And at the same time that you're also with your family and that you're also teaching students and you're also doing hibodedut for hours. So he probably didn't sleep much. And what's he was never asleep. What's the point I'm trying to that for a person like that, it gets to be usually that everyone around you, even though they might be older than you, or even though they might be wiser than you, or even though they might be more experienced than you, to some degree would hold you back because of the intensity with which you are able to learn and grow and progress. Also, Rabbi Nachman was literally so fanatically obsessed with being as close to Hashem as possible. And any sniff of anything that was not that, he completely rejected, both in his personal life and even from those around him. I mean, he got married, and as soon as he got married, his father-in-law, his wife passed away. He got remarried. Soon after they got remarried, the new mother-in-law came in and saw that Rabbi Nachman used the attic for hibodedut and for learning. And she, I guess when he was gone for a trip, she had the place renovated, redesigned with all of her clothing or something. And he came back in and he went up. He just saw it for 1 second. He came back down and he told his wife, we're moving. No conversation, no nothing. How could you do this? Why did you do this? Can we go back? It was important to me. Nothing. Done. Moving. When he wanted to go to the land of Israel, he's told his wife, I'm going to Israel. You mean with us? No, I'm just going. What about us? The kids start crying. He just left. I'm not telling you this. I'm not telling you this because Rabbi Nachman would suggest you to do this, and obviously there's more details to the stories. I'm just trying to bring out that Rabbi Nachman wanted one thing, and they talked about it as well, that in his hibodedut, the ikar of his entire hibodedut since he was a little child was the same thing over and over again. I want to be closer to you. I want to be close. That's it. That was all he cared about. To the extent that when he got older and he had learned so much, can you imagine having one goal and literally working toward every single day, that he would, when he was a little kid, instead of going out to recess, he would pretend he was acting out, and he would go out to the woods like he was having an angry fit, and he would just do hibodedut for hours. So he was different. And obviously, if somebody is not on that same level of, I just want this one thing and nothing else, then obviously it becomes somewhat of a barrier. So I imagine it would be difficult for him to have found a rabbi after, like, he was 10. Also probably knew more than them. You do, but you need to find someone who knows more than you.
Wasn't he talking to Baal Shem Tov?
What's that?
Wasn't he talking to Baal Shem Tov?
I mean, yeah, he did.
No, I'm talking about like through Shekhinah or something like that. He was like communicating with him or something like that.
He used to do a lot of stuff. He used to do soul ascents. He used to literally go through spiritual worlds. There was a story about when he had like just gotten married. He was young, like 16 or something, like 18.
Wow.
And
He got married really early, like 13 or 14.
yeah, and he said this was his first student. Right after he got married under the chuppah, he was outside with this guy, and he said, and Rabbi Nachman said to him, "Why don't you go inside and party with everybody else?" And he said, I'm not really into that. I actually I just want to get close to Hashem. And he said, me and you are going to be very close. That was his first student. Okay. A little bit later on, not very long after that, there was a big rabbi who wanted to make it known to him that he saw images from the Merkava, which we know that according to Masechet Hagiga, you're not allowed to teach over, not even to one person, because it's the most esoteric, deepest, most mystical part of the Torah. And if you don't give it over in the right way, it can make a person go off completely, X, Y, and Z. So you can only hint to it, whatever. So this person wanted to make it known to his students that he saw certain things in his whatever. That when I went to the north, I saw this. And when I went to the western section, I saw this. When I went to the east. And in the middle of him talking this over to his students, Rabbi Nachman went over to him after and he said, "Why did you lie to everybody?" He said, "What?" He said, "Why are you lying to everybody?" He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I saw all these things." He said, "No, you didn't, because I was there and that's not what was there." Something metaphysical. something, And the guy just begged for forgiveness. He's like, "I'm so sorry." This is like Rabbi Nachman's daily activities. The life in the times of Rabbi Nachman.
Can I theoretically not have a rub now?
You are definitely not holding in a place that you can't have a rabbi. I don't think anybody is like that unless you know all of these books and you learn them every year and you don't look at any secular wisdom and you never get angry and you never get sad and you everything that you do is only for the sake of making Hashem happy and never anything at all for you. Obviously these are yeah.
I don't want to undermine our whole Shabbat, the whole thing.
Just because you're going down, don't bring everybody down with
I'm
you.
not going down.
I'm just saying, I don't want to hear any secular wisdom come out of your mouth right now. No, I don't know. I don't want to hear you. You say you're prefacing with, I don't want to undermine the situation.
I'm following your advice.
I'm not giving you any advice. I'm just
following your advice.
okay. I'm just telling you what Rabbi Nachman says. Also, he wasn't the only one who was like this. There was a few people. We also know, for instance, what's his name? More recently, Chazon Ish. He also didn't have a rabbi, and he was one of the biggest rabbis in history. And he is respected and revered by everybody. So when they asked him who his rabbis were, he said Rav Yosef Cairo and the Rambam, meaning that he's reading these books and they're his rabbis. He's learning from them. But obviously this was a person, he never stopped learning from the morning until the night. And he knew the entire Torah by heart. And he created chidushim in it that nobody's ever seen before. And we still hold by and, So when you get to that level, so then obviously it would be difficult for you to find a rabbi. This is a very unique situation. Okay? And you should know. Know as well that a person, he must couple gevurot with chasadim. He must couple severities with chasadim, kindness. Smola b'mina, left with right. Kamo shekatuv. The gevurot yesha yaminu, like we say, that with gevura, salvation comes from his hand, his right hand. So which one is it? Is it gevura, which is the left hand, or is the yesha come from his right hand? It's both. Ki ikar hitgalut al yedei chasadim, because the essence of the revelation of the chasadim is like this when they're coupled together. Therefore, it's likewise necessary to couple ahava, love, with yira, in order that you should generate thunder. This comes from the right side. Mocha chivra kechaspa. That when you have a clear mind and you have a fiery heart, and you put these two together, you create thunder. And what does it mean? It means it's the concept of connecting right and left. That when you put right and left together, you crack, you make a sound, you make a thunder. Okay? Yes. Yeah. And that thunder is what brings the revelation of God consciousness.
So it's to clap together and scream together?
No, it's just the concept. Also, when you clap, it's the same thing. We're going to learn mitigate judgments. Why is it mitigate judgments? Because the concept of right and left, the coupling of love and yira.
Unifying the two up.
Like for instance, in this parsha, we see that Hashem comes to Moshe, and he says that Elohim speaks to Moshe, and he says, Ani Hashem. So all the commentaries are saying, I don't understand. Is it Elohim or it's Yud-Kei Vav-Kei? Which one is it? Oh, so he says, and then he says that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov didn't know me like you know me. So what was the point? So the Or Chaim says, and they don't translate in the Art Scroll because it's based on Kabbalah, that Elohim represents Yira, right, the left side, Dinim, judgments, and Yud-Kei Vav-Kei represents the right side, Chasadim, Rachamim. And the whole concept of Geula comes when there's a unity between the two. When Hashem Echad U'Shemo Echad. It's the coupling of Ahava and Yira. It's the coupling of the right side and the left side. When you have a unity between those two, a union between those two, that's when you have Geula. So he was trying to tell him that even though we see that since I brought you back, now they're struggling more and they're giving you a hard time about it, right? And even though I'm presenting myself like Elohim, Ani Hashem, Ani Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it's really me, meaning it's really love. And with these two together, that's the Geula, when you put them two together. Meaning he revealed to him Yichud, unity between opposites. But this is what brings Geula. And this is what happens when you have a pure mind, meaning no secular wisdom, and you also pray with fire, which is the concept of your heart is now on fire. Your mind is on fire from having no secular wisdom. Your heart is on fire from the energy and the fervence that comes from not having that. Those two come together. Now you create a unity, and your voice strikes and is heard.
It's the same thing when you're praying Shacharit, the same thing.
Same thing always.
And you're studying as well.
Same thing always.
Anytime you open your mouth.
The whole concept of Chassidus is it is secret, hidden under the cover espionage. That every single thing that Rabbi Nachman or the Baal Shem Tov or the Baal Tanya or any of the great Chassidic masters tell you to do is only for the sake of one thing, that you should be creating yichudim. You're creating unifications. Even the first Torah, learning Torah b'koach. Torah is the concept of chokhmah. Koach is the left side. Strength, koach, is always the concept of the left side, or energy, or vigor, or vigil, right? That's all left side. Learning Torah b'koach is a unity.
How do you do Shacharit? Like you put down in Tzibur and you're reading out loud. I did that one time. They're like, shh, shh, shh.
So this is why you would have to daven with people who pray like that. Amen. Amen.
I'll come here.
Okay. Any questions?
Here?
Any questions, even from the audience on the globe?
Rabbeinu.
Yeah.
So it says in Tehillim, Ata yadati ki Hoshea. Amen. It says in Tehillim, Ata yadati ki Hoshea Hashem Meshicho Ya'aneu Mishemek Ocho Bigvorot Yesha Yemino.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so what's the point?
Bigburat Yesha Imino.
Oh, you know the pasuk. Yeah, very good. Baruch Hashem. Thank God. Nice chiddush. David's the best. Okay.
The question. So someone who's been trying to apply this,
Yeah.
like, let's say anything, but it's just every time it just fails. Like I try something and it just gets hard the next day, like 100 times harder. And this happens like a lot of times. So like, what would you say to that? Because like every time, any advice you give me, it just clamps the next day.
Yes. You know how I know what you mean?
Yeah.
Because the same thing happened to me.
Right.
You know what the difference between me and you is? I just keep going. And I'm just telling you this because this is the only, Rabbi Nachman says it explicitly. Every single person has had that same thing. And the only difference between those people that you look up to, that you are trying to learn from and trying to achieve your highest potential from learning from, and a person who's not like that, is that one person never gave up and another person did.
Is it because they have a different, like the right goal in mind when they're doing it?
It's because there's a few things going on. One thing is that we grow up in a generation and we grow up in a society that things come instantaneously to us. Okay? When, let's say now you get older and then you realize that when you go to get a job, or when you try to grow spiritually, or you try to get married, or you try to stay married,
There's a labor process.
that there is a labor in all of it and nothing comes like it did the first 18 years of your life. When you, Mom, pancakes. These pancakes are overdone. Where's the syrup, Mom? Yeah. So it doesn't really work like that once you get out. Unless you're in an Adam Sandler movie. So then you're gonna see everything in your life is like that. Chazal say all beginnings are difficult. Okay. And
Every second is a new beginning, but that means every second is different.
yeah, but you don't have to go that far. Beginnings are difficult. All beginnings are difficult. When a person wants to be Bal Tshuva, he doesn't just want to be Bal Tshuva. He wants to be the mamish epitome on the level of Avram Avinu, a student of Rebbe Nachman as a Bal Tshuva. Then it's going to be hard. Whatever you do, whether you're trying to whip out secular wisdom, whether you're trying to be Shmirat Brit, whether you're trying to do any of the things that Rabbi Nachman says, Rav Natan stresses all the times, it is going to be hard in the beginning. How long is the beginning? It depends how long Satan sees that you're vulnerable. Meaning, if the Satan knows that your threshold is, I need to give you one little and you're out, so I'll give you one little and you're out. If I know that if I can push you long enough, let's say, you can only do it for 3 months, I'll give you 3 months. And whatever your threshold is, that's what he'll give it to you for. But ultimately, when he knows for sure that you're not moving and you're not leaving from there, he'll come off.
Rabbeinu,
Yeah.
the Satan, he always makes us to go into, some kind of ta'avud that we want to do.
That's also true. So you understand?
Because
Wait, 1 second, David. So the point is like this. Let's say, for instance, you start doing hipodadut. You do one day. Oh, thank God I did an hour. It's like amazing. Next day comes, and that day is brutally hard and difficult. X, Y, and Z. Okay. So that's because nothing comes for free. And you have to work hard to do anything. And you need to be diligent and you need to be persistent. And you need to, like Rabbi Nachman says explicitly in the 22nd Torah Likutei Moharan, the only person who reaches Kedusha is someone who has holy chutzpah. A person who mamish, he will rake and claw and he will push and he will prod and he will keep getting back up over and 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 over again. Only that person will ever taste holiness. Right? The Gemara says explicitly in Brachot that the three greatest things in the world can only come with suffering. And that is the land of Israel. That is Torah. That is Olam Haba. They're all the same thing. if you want to be close to Hashem, you're going to have to go through many ups and downs. You're going to have to be persistent. You're going to have to get up a trillion times after you fall, but you have to keep trying. The only thing that's in your hand is that you don't give up. It's the only free will you have. The only koach you have is not giving up.
Rabbeinu.
1 second, David. I just want to see if anybody else has questions. Any other questions? Yes.
Parang,
For
Other besides David, besides you. 1 second.
asking for, on a big house. Let's just say,
What color?
in Israel. So I'm saying that's not reality.
Okay.
Is that a problem to pray for that? Because when a person thinking about the physicality, going to Eretz Israel and thinking that they're gonna have a mansion is not level they're gonna have, and they're not gonna go there and survive there. So not just there and here as well. So we don't want to, just asking you, we don't want a mansion. We don't want to ask for a mansion because it's gonna
Why?
take
Ask for
away
mansion.
away from the
Ask for a
physicality.
mansion. Just don't ask to be physical. I mean, you should have a mansion. Why not? What's wrong with that?
What do you mean
Just
physical?
Don't look at it in a physical way. Shem, I want to bring people back to you. What's the problem with that?
I understand.
Don't look at it in physical. What's the problem?
I understand what you said.
Just ask for a mansion. What's
No,
wrong with asking
meaning-
for a mansion?
I think he wants to know: Am I praying like fruitlessly because I'm going to a country that is not as
Not just in the country here too, because if I have a big house, then I'm taking away from my emunah, from my connection to Hashem. Because if I don't have, you can't have both worlds, like you say yourself. Is it the physical or the spiritual?
I'm not going to you can if you're humble.
Okay, so listen. I hear your question.
Right.
I'll tell you like this. I'll tell you like this. You need to pray with where you're holding. That means that if a person is holding by, I want a house and a car, and that's the beginning of his hibodedut, and that's real for him, he needs to pray about that. Okay? As he grows and he asks also that close to Hashem, his desires will change. Because, like, for instance, let's say that I really want a big house. Okay? I really want a big house. Why? Because my whole life I grew up, and that was like really exciting, the concept of having a big house. You saw other people have a big house. It looked like maybe they were happy, whatever. All of a sudden, you start doing hibodedut, and you're learning from Rabbi Nachman that all of simcha comes from the fact that you have a pure heart. And it doesn't come from a physical space. And the less pure your heart is and the bigger that space is, the emptier it feels. So now as time goes on, it could be there's a good chance that your prayer will change from, I want a big, clean house to I want a big, clean heart. But everybody needs to pray from wherever they are holding. Make sense?
Yeah.
Rabbeinu.
1 second, David. David, call me after personally.
Are we at this point, are we praying, like, for example, we don't want to have a Rav. We have a Rav, that Rabbi Nachman.
Yeah.
Or should we praying for a real Rav? Like a physical Rav.
For sure, and definitely not the guy in front of you. This guy's a clown. I don't know who that is.
Where am I going to find
You know,
I'm talking about the real deal. Someone who his
meant.
beard is this big.
No, that's not what I
I'm
meant.
just kidding.
No, I'm talking about, you leaving, let's just say. And I
Chas
want
v'shalom, I'm not leaving anywhere.
I
I'm
want
going to
I want my
Israel.
kids to have physical Rav as well, that they could go
100%.
and sit and learn and
Good.
have some respect.
You should definitely, yes, you should definitely pray to Hashem for that. That's a very good thing to pray for.
They're saying you're leaving.
Right, no. So
Yeah, he's
so
always-
so he's asking if I should pray to meet, connect to somebody else if you're not here.
No, not you, but I'm just talking about overall having a Rav that
You should
that-
always, right now, I also pray. I pray every day that I should be able to have a mashpia, somebody that I could connect to, that could teach me Rabbi Nachman's Torah, that I feel like is giving me a closer hikashut with Rabbi Nachman. I haven't found it yet. Bezrat Hashem in Israel, But-
set you up, Rabbi, don't worry.
but I this is, you have to always pray. You have to, the main point is like this. You want hikashu with Rabbi Nachman. That's what you want. You want to be close to Rabbi Nachman. You want to be able to soak and bathe in that river from Gan Eden, okay? Now your prayer to Hashem should be, help me to have hikashu with the Rebbe and bring me every circumstance necessary to increase that hikashu, whether that is through a physical mashpia, whether that is living in a certain space that would help me to grow more in that area, whether that is hanging out with certain people, whether that is learning certain things, whether that is doing certain actions, whatever helps you to have a higher level of hikashu. And then obviously, if you have somebody physically who you can go learn from, that can teach you Rabbi Nachman's Torah, that he can make you feel closer to Hashem, that you feel that you're growing continuously, and that the person himself is L'Shem Shemayim, and he really, so that's best case scenario, for sure. Mike from New York, you got a question?
Come to show tomorrow.
Bezrat Hashem, we'll see. Any other questions?
Rob, when are you leaving for Israel?
Bezrat Hashem,
Never. Not yet. Once all the students are ready to go.
your words are powerful. Didn't we speak about this? I hope to be there by Pesach, but everything is in Hashem's hands.
Your word.
Everything is in Hashem's hands.
Hashem says that his students be with their Rabbi.
So that means you have to come with me.
Night, Papa.
That's all. Okay?
It's easy for him. It's Israeli.
Listen, you're so thin. I could fold you up like a pretzel and
I know,
stick you in my
Sheila said he's gonna take
suitcase.
me in his suitcase.
Yeah,
Don't even
okay.
have to check
You're
it.
good to go.
Yeah.
The only thing that's gonna be sticking out,
Right.
the only thing that's gonna be sticking out is your hair. That's the only problem we're gonna have.
Make sure
You're gonna have to bring it down a little bit when we get in the flight.
Or you just buy a seat.
Yeah. Thanks for ruining and pooping on the party. You have a
When it says that when you see conflict between
Tzaddikim.
it's ridiculous for you, and when you have no secular wisdom, you won't see that conflict. Is it that the conflict will still be there, but it's not a reality for you
Oh,
because it makes sense to you what they're.
the Torah
discussing?
teaches you won't see anything that's not inside of you.
So if I see the second wisdom, must be inside.
Rabbi.
That means that if you see anything, if you see disloyalty, it means you're not loyal. It means that if you see people stealing, it means you steal. If you see anger in other people, or you feel like there's people that are low l'shem shemayim, it means you're not.
If you see a rape, then you're a rape.
Why do you think that Benjamin's a predator? Because we have to get.
That's actually a real question. There are people who do heal. There are people who work with many people, and they're a figure. For
The Baal Shem Tov says, if you see anything, you have some type of manifestation of that within yourself. It doesn't mean that you have chas v'shalom, that you rape people, but it does mean it's possible that you take advantage of people.
Well, what if it's just Hashem wants you to help that person at that time?
Baal Shem Tov says that's not how it works.
So how does helping people work?
You help them.
Okay. So if somebody calls you, for example, and says, my son has a drug addiction.
Okay.
I need your help.
Right. So what you do is, it depends what you see in that person. When I hear that there's a drug addict, let's say for instance, that I only see the person, then I don't see the addiction. Understand? It's what you see is what's inside of you. If I hear, let's say for instance, I have a person, everybody goes, this guy is he's taking advantage of everybody, he's lying, he's cheating, he's this and he's that. And I don't have those things inside of me. I won't see those things in him. I'll only see the good in him. This is, by the way that you help a person. The way that a person is helped comes from the fact that you see the good in him.
Is it because you're planting within that seed, the seed for that person?
100%. And because that's the truth.
But him
He's
being a drug addict is also the truth.
so he is addicted to drugs, but he's not a drug addict.
So then what is he?
He's a Jew.
Right, but he's help.
That's true.
And your thought makes it a reality.
But the whole concept is that he is a piece of God.
Right.
You're starting.
And that's why you don't give up on him.
That's why you don't, and that's why you believe in him, and that's why he's helped. All of these,
Tachlis is he needs help.
he needs help. That's fine, but ultimately, if you want to really get close to Hashem, you should always be looking for whatever it is that you see. Besides the fact that you're just trying to help the situation, you should go back and see: is there a part of you that deals with addiction?
Right. Why I say this is because Moshe Rabbeinu saw two Jews fighting.
I understand.
What does that mean?
Very good. Very, very good. It's a good question. However, these people were not tzaddikim. Okay, we said that.
Jews.
I understand, but the concept is that when you see conflict among tzaddikim, it's rebuke for you. Okay. Basic premise is like this. The Baal Shem Tov says in some way, some form, if you see it, it's in you. That's all. You don't have to go crazy with to what extent does that mean? Does it have to be the actual physical? The main point is if you see it, it's in you. What's a deeper aspect of this? The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu is the root soul of every Jew.
Right, and Rav Nachman had rebuke from people who the whole world look up to.
100%. So there's different Torahs and they discuss different things. There's other places that he says sometimes a person is rebuked by everybody simply because that person doesn't believe in himself yet, and it's the rebuke of others that causes him to force him to have to find belief in himself. There's another Torah that he speaks about. Why is a person rebuked? It's because specifically he's holding on to the truth. So there's many elements, there's many facets. Everything is not black and white. Everything is circumstantial, depends on places, circumstances, X, Y, and Z, the person's level who's criticizing. There's no like one size fits all for anything. So you have to really be baki in many levels of Torah and many levels of Chassidut and many levels of Kabbalah to be able to understand when to place what and where. But Rav Natan also had many, many questions like this that he brought to Rav Nachman all the time. But we see that there's a premise for this, and the basic, and there's another element of it. You know, if you read, I think there's a book. It's called Garden of Suffering or something like that. That they took all of Rabbi Nachman's Torah. Oh no, all of Rabbi Nachman's Torah, they put it into English in a book. All that has to do with suffering. And what's the reason for it? Why is Hashem doing it? X, Y, and Z. I remember I read it when I was going through my depression. And he says there that the majority of people, that when they are struggling with something, Hashem is trying to teach them humility. But there are certain few people that's not the lesson. They have reached a certain level in their life, and they are literally taking on the suffering of those around them so they don't have to. How do you know when's what? Only Hashem knows.
If a person that is walking outside, that means I see him, me.
If you see anything,
Anything.
if you see anything, you should. Baal Shem Tov says, if you see anything positive, you should attribute it. You should attribute it there. If you see anything which is a blemish, you should look inside.
I see a blemish.
You should look inside. If, let's say, for instance, you got into a fight with somebody, Chas v'Shalom, after this class, and whatever it is that's bothering you about that person, that you feel like is off with them, the Baal Shem Tov is saying the reason it's bothering you so much is because you actually deal with the problem. But because we have tremendous defense mechanisms, and some people more so than others, and depending on your culture and how you were brought up and what is the way and X, Y, and Z, those defense mechanisms are even stronger. But ultimately, if you look deep enough, you will find that thing in some way.
That's only for you to be with them.
This is in general. Okay? Everybody have an amazing night. Have an amazing Shabbat. Bezrat Hashem, we'll be in touch. Have a happy Shabbat. All blessings come from Shabbat. I know everybody's going through a lot right now. It's a difficult time. I wish that each of you really, truly has the happiest Shabbat with your family, with your friends, and that you're able to go into the new week with new life force, new joy, new energy, and new confidence in Hashem, in His Torah, in true tzaddikim, in yourself.
Rabbeinu, did you see what I texted?
I don't have that phone on me. When I go home, Bezrat Hashem, I'm going to check it out. Okay.
Yes, I texted on the Zoom.
Oh. Yes. Very good. If a person gives up, it will lead a person to go into Yeyush, for sure, 100%. Thank you very much, David. Everybody have a great night.